The first thing you'll want to do for this assignment is to set up your paper. Because we will be using a horizon line and vanishing points that go outside your page, you'll need to create a flap on either side with some additional paper and a little masking tape. Next, flip over the page and draw a horizon line that stretches across all 3 pieces of paper. On the far left and far right sides, draw a vanishing point. Since we are doing this assignment in 2-point perspective, you'll need to use both of them. And as you know, vanishing points are always on the horizon line. The next step is to decide where the front corner of your first building will be. You can put it in the middle of the page, but personally, I prefer to put it off to one side. Start with a vertical line for this corner and then use the vanishing points to draw the 2 sides of the building. Then add 2 more vertical lines to complete those sides. Remember the phrase I repeat all the time during class. Parallel lines always converge on the same vanishing point. This rule becomes especially important as you get to the trickier parts of the drawing. For example, perhaps you want to add a very tall building on the side of your first building. You might not be able to see the entire left side of that building, but you can see a little part of it. You know, though, that those lines on the left are parallel with all the other left sides of all of the other buildings, so you will still use the left vanishing point. Continue adding buildings until you have at least 4. You may also want to add a street or sidewalk in front of them. Remember that you can draw any place you like, real or imagined. I'm drawing a fairly basic city street since this is just an example, but I would love to see some of you draw a space station on the moon or a street in New York City or some other place you have been to in the past or would like to imagine in the future. Once you've made all your buildings, it is time to start thinking about architectural details. Windows, doors, and even signs will make them seem less like boxes and more like buildings. The important thing to remember as you're adding these details is that the rules of perspective still apply. So if the top or bottom of a door, window, or sign is parallel to the sides of the building, it should be drawn using the same vanishing point as those sides. Eventually, you will want to start thinking about adding value to your drawing. One thing that sometimes surprises people is that during the day, windows are actually very dark. This is true regardless of where the light is coming from. So you may just want to fill in your windows right away. Once you've done that, you can start thinking about where the light will be coming from in your scene. I've drawn a little sun on the right side of my page because that's where I'd like the light to be coming from. This means the left side, my buildings will be in shadow, so I'll add shading there. Keep shading in the details of the buildings and adding shadow to the left side of the buildings until the buildings begin to look complete. You can also add some shading to the sidewalks or other details in the scene. At some point, however, you'll need to think about the shadow cast by the buildings. I like to make the edges of these shadows soft and fuzzy since it is difficult to calculate the exact shape of them. You do know, however, that they will be on the shadow side of the building, not the lit side. This is actually another one of the reasons why I like to draw the sun on my page so that I don't forget which direction the sun is coming from. If I can look at where the sun is coming from, it's easier for me to remember that on the opposite side, that's where my buildings will be casting shadow. Towards the end of the project, you may want to add some figures or other characters/inhabitants to your scene. This gives the picture a bit of a soul and makes it more interesting. It's important, however, to remember that the figures closer to the front will be much bigger than those at the back. The way I keep track of how tall people are is by remembering that the horizon line is also your eye level line. Assuming the people in the scene are about your height, their eyes will be on the horizon line. If you keep their eyes on the horizon line and their feet on the ground, they will always be the right height.